So we get a lot of questions from the public about ice baths because we have one and we do one. Like I feel like a lot of people like to talk to us about ice baths. We get questions. It always kind of comes up. We don't even bring it up. Like, is it, so I feel like I'm always talking about them because we have one and we do them daily. And then I find we're always in conversations with people about ice baths. And I'm like, fuck, did I bring this up? Like, was that me subtly trying to flex? And then I realized, oh no, I didn't bring it up. People actually genuinely want to talk to us about it.
Yeah, I definitely find myself trying to subtly, bring ice bars into the conversation just to tell people that I've got one. They'll be talking about their day and I'll be like, oh, so anyways, this morning, like, oh, the ice bath was so cold, just to like slip it in.
It's funny though, because I think people are really impressed that we have one. And then I say that, well, we just got it off Facebook Marketplace and it's just a converted chest freezer in the garage. Like it's not that hard to have one.
It's not that hard to have one at all.
I think people think it's super impressive, and then we explain the process of how we got one, how much we paid for it, where we got it, where it is, and it kind of is like, oh, okay, that's it. And then it starts becoming like a reality to people that you could have this.
That's a good point, yeah, because like you go on like if you go on like social media and you see some like famous influencer in their ice bath and you look up those ice baths, they're like what, 10 grand?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're expensive as you can spend probably like up to 20 grand on the craziest ice bath in the world.
And they're always in a like environment that's some, crazy setup,
like a
wellness
villa.
center. Yeah. Or like massive home gym that looks incredible. So people, it's not even, I think, the epic ice bath that people think they have to create. I think they think, well, we did too before we got one, that you picture you need to have some like epic wellness center in your house to be able to have an ice bath at home.
So true. And it's crazy because it's like if you go to an ice bath center or like a wellness place where you can actually do an ice bath, like how much do you spend? I don't know, but it costs fucking heaps to be able to go.
And just do, a plunge.
Do a plunge
for the day.
Have
15 minutes or 30 minutes in the room.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I've got a bit of a gripe with it, and I'm here for using methods. I'm here for any possible method that can be used for personal development or some sort of, spiritual enhancement or anything like that. I'm totally here for it, but at the same time, it's become less about those things and it's more about a status symbol of like, hey, I'm this fucking legend who does ice baths. Like this is what it's all about.
100%.
Let me run it back for you, all right? And this is I'll just be honest here, all right? Since I was young, okay, because of the nature of my upbringing and it being mixed with martial arts and a lot of stuff to do with sort of Japanese culture and Japanese history and Japanese spiritual practices, I grew up hearing, like from my dad, I grew up hearing about misogi, which is Japanese water purification, spiritual water purification. And it's got a whole different, it's got a whole history about it where people would go find these, spiritual, these energetically powerful like water sources out in the mountains of Japan, right? And you'd make a pilgrimage there and you'd cold plunge in the winter and you'd go through a full spiritual cleanse. And they had it tied in with their religion and their gods, and there was a whole lot to it, right? So I grew up hearing, before I never even knew cold plunges were a thing, I grew up hearing about that and I was like, oh, that is so fucking cool. One day I want one of them. As soon as I have enough money and I have my own joint, I want to get a cold plunge. And then since then, now it's become this like, oh, every dickhead who has a podcast and a cold plunge, can they shut the fuck up? And I feel personally attacked because I just wanted to have one because I thought it was dope. And now it's like, yeah, mate, whatever, you got a cold plunge, you're an idiot.
Well, full on, like I actually I feel that like sometimes I feel like I don't want people to know that we have a cold plunge because the narrative around cold plunges now, I think, are just being completely tainted with, like you said, just dickheads with a cold plunge.
Yeah.
So I actually find I'm embarrassed now to share that we have one. Like the beauty of it's been taken. It's tainted. From what I see on social media in the world, I'm like, I don't want to be another dickhead with a cold plunge.
And it's all good. In the end, being able to tell people about it isn't actually what it's all about anyway, even though we're sitting on a podcast talking about it. It's funny because it's presented in popular personal development or like influencer culture at the moment that the cold plunge and the ice bath is the answer to all of your problems. You know, like this is the secret. Like you don't have enough money, do a cold plunge. You're not successful yet, do a cold plunge. Your relationships are shit, do a cold plunge. Whatever it is, you don't feel like enough of a man, you're not sexy enough, you're not mentally tough enough, go do a cold plunge.
Yeah.
And I just want to, this is my experience, I want to dispel that, at least destroy that image right now. I guess we will get into the things that we think are beautiful about it and amazing about it. But for me, the cold plunge isn't the work. It's not the work. Like if we talk about the work in terms of personal development, improving ourselves, it can be used as a tool, but it's not doing the work.
Yeah.
Not at all.
100%.
And what's crazy about it for me is a few years back when I was really broke, zero cash, was living in a place where I didn't have enough space to put a cold plunge. At those times, it's like when I was hearing people go, you just need to do a cold plunge and that's what's going to fix it. I was like, I need a lot of things before I need a cold plunge. Like I need some fucking money. Like I need cash.
I need a job.
And so for me, the cold plunge,
I'm full like picturing you like 30 minutes in an ice bath, just like looking up, waiting for the money to start raining.
Well, I couldn't even do an ice bath. Like where was I going to do one? I couldn't go to a center and pay $120 to do an ice bath. It's like I needed to eat.
Yeah.
I needed to pay my rent. Like, you know, and it's like I've got all of these emotional and mental problems that I'm trying to deal with. And it's like, you know what? If only I could get that $20,000 cold plunge, then I'd be able to sort the rest of my life out. And I just want to flip the script on it for a second. The cold plunge is not the answer. It's the reward once you've sorted your shit out for me.
Yeah.
So to give context in like our situation right now, one, we got the cheapest cold plunge we could, which was like $1,000, I guess. So for starters, you have to be in a situation where you've got enough money that you're willing to spend $1,000 minimum on an ice bath, or you're willing to buy a freezer for maybe a bit less and convert it. So you need to already be in a position where your life where you're not on the bare bones of your ass. Like you got to drop cash, right? So you've already got to be in a bit of a better situation. And then from there, you got to have the space to be able to put it somewhere. So usually it means you've got to be, unless you're putting it in your bedroom next to your single mattress on the floor, questioning your existence. Unless you're doing that, you need to have sorted yourself out enough to be able to live in a nice enough place where you're willing to also use that extra space on something as, I guess, trivial and unnecessary as an ice bath, right? So for me,
also you got to have the money to be able to pay to run the fucking thing.
Energy ain't cheap these days.
Which is not cheap. To keep that thing at 0.1 degrees like we do, that costs.
It costs money, yeah. So all of these things cost money.
Water bill to fill it up.
The water bill. You got to buy the stuff to put in it to stop it from going funky. All these stuff, like it's not crazy expensive, right? But usually, like when I look out into the world of influencers and they're talking about cold plunging, unless you live in a part of the world where you have access to like really cold water somewhere, like you live near a really cold river or whatever.
And I used to think going down to Port Melbourne Beach was cold plunging until we bought an ice bath. And now like the beach at Port Melbourne feels so warm. Like in the middle of winter, that water is so warm. It's not having the effects, the health benefits that a cold plunge has. It's not the same. Like the water's just not cold enough.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And like in the scheme of things, I saw this, I told you about this. I saw this meme the other day. And if I can describe it properly, It was basically like a video of Vikings, and it's like Ragnar Lothbrok jumping off a boat about to like storm a village and like conquer a new part of the world that's undiscovered, right? And then the caption is like dudes up in Byron Bay thinking that this is what they feel like when they get in a cold plunge for 2 minutes. It's like dealing with the actual real, even if it's not massive problems in the world, dealing with like actual real life and trying to sort of build a life and deal with relationships and deal with yourself and trying to improve yourself in any sort of real way. Anyone can jump in a cold plunge for a couple minutes, even if it feels like shit the first time you do it. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you do not need to have your shit sorted or be in a good place in life or whatever to be able to get in the cold plunge, and you can get out of that cold plunge and all your other issues are still there.
There. Yeah. And you have $1,000 less.
Yeah.
So you probably have more issues to be honest. You probably have more issues.
Yeah, you're down $50 from leaving the wellness center. And like, yeah, I totally agree. There's so many health benefits and I love the feeling of it. I'm just a little bit sick of the narrative that a 2-minute ice bath is going to solve your issues, and that's the work. That's all the work. That's just it. That's the pinnacle. Get to that, do your ice plunge, and then you've done the work. And I'm a bit over that narrative.
For sure. And I want to, I guess from my side, I want to have a somewhat balanced approach. I don't really have a problem with people putting themselves out there, videoing their sick ice bath setup and talking about how amazing it is. I think that's actually awesome. I think
100%.
that's cool. So it's not like I'm calling out Byron Bay influencers right now and being like, you guys are a bunch of losers. Not at all. I think like good on you. I think cold plunging is dope and I think it's awesome in a lot of ways. But for all the people who are in a position where you're maybe trying to get from 0 to 1 and you're potentially fed this dream that the superficial things like a cold plunge and a sauna is what you need to be able to sort your life out. It's all good. Like it's not. It's not. Like you don't need that. And so the reason why I bring this up is I've spoken to a lot of people, and particularly guys, a lot of young guys who have it in their head that they're getting down on themselves and they're feeling a little bit shit because they think that the gateway to happiness and the gateway to success is through these things like a cold plunge and a sauna, which the reality is they're the things that you do after you've gained a little bit of stability and a little bit of success in your life. Like, you know what I mean? So it's the other way around. Like a sauna feels great. It's not like this mental battle that you're going through really. And same with the cold plunge. It is a mental battle for a very short period of time, but then you feel amazing afterwards. Like I think I can speak for both of us. We do it because it feels good, not because it feels bad.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my initial sort of take on it. And it's definitely how I've felt about it.
Yeah. And like when we ice bath nearly every single day. We have been doing that for nearly 2 years.
2 years? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I feel like we bought it in June. So in June, it'll be 2 years.
Yeah.
And when we talk about our experience with it, it's always, I feel this. I feel that we are talking about our own experience. So when you're saying like we don't have a problem with people, uploading their ice bath at home and all that, yeah, fucking go for it. Talk about how it feels for you. But when the narrative is projected like, if you ice bath, this will happen, this problem will be solved, yada yada yada. It's like you can't make those promises. And it's putting promises from like it's in a very elite thing to be able to do. Like you said, ice bath, sauna, cold, hot therapy. And I think it's sad because people are thinking that that's what they need to source, which can be really expensive and hard to source. That's what they need to source in order to work on themselves. Or they need to pay to go to a retreat where it's 10 guys standing around in their fucking jocks and taking turns jumping in this little circle ice bath and then the work is done, and that's what they need to save and strive for, where I think there's a million other things that can also really contribute and make doing the work. not just this thing that we've put on this platform of that's the work and that's all you need to do.
100%. And I think, at least in my own experience, the time and the mental energy and the money that you can save from just being like, I don't need to do that shit right now. And then putting that into the things that are actually probably the boring things that are actually going to move the needle on.
Boring and accessible to everyone, like meditating.
Yeah.
The free apps that tell you how to do it. You can do it anywhere.
Meditating, exercise, there's a million things. And
drink less.
Drink less.
Like cut your drinking down. Alcohol, obviously. I'm not talking about water.
Yeah.
Drink less.
Unless it's that tap water. Cut that shit out. Go get yourself a $700. Get yourself a $700.
I was gonna say you could get filters now for like $100.
This is probably another thing. We got the water. I didn't even think about this, but we got the water purifier here. You can go down the water route, and maybe we'll do a whole episode on how we feel about water at some point. But this ties
how we feel about tap water.
Yeah, this ties into the narrative for me as well. Is like. You can spend crazy money on water filters, and I do think like having good water is really important. But depending on the stage of life that you're in, where it's maybe you've got like a few $100 to your name and you're trying to work out how to like get ahead a little bit, it's like just focus on the shit that you should be focusing on. Because I've in the past where I haven't been in a good enough stable position in my life, but I've wanted to do this stuff so badly, you know, like I've wanted from growing up, you know, it's like I just wanted all the cool things, and the cool things for me wasn't like nice cars and sick clothes. It was like, saunas, cold plunges, pure water, like access to nature at all times, being able to have like all the cool like supplements and organic expensive food and all this sort of stuff. It's like all this stuff's important, but if you're on the bones of your ass and you continually just invest those things, you'll never be able to probably get forward enough to be able to actually enjoy those things consistently without them taken away. You know what I mean? Obviously, it's different for a lot of people's circumstances, but it just raises the question for me of like, I wasn't considering where I should be funneling my resources and my money very well, and I was sort of caught onto this dream of like, that's what a successful life looks like. So I need to buy those things now,
and then I'll be happy.
And then
all my problems will be solved.
Yeah, and it didn't solve any of my problems. I was just more broke and wanted more things and had more desire, and more desire equals more suffering, essentially.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like what we talk about a lot with just mass wellness industries. When you've got people preaching to mass audience of do this, that, and you will find happiness, or you will heal, or you will find success. And it's just so different depending on where you are in your life. Because, you know, if you've got all baseline things covered, then getting a water filter I think does make you feel good and improve your life and your health. But like you said, if you're on your ass, depressed, broke, and you're saving for a water filter and you get that water filter, it's probably going to make you feel worse. You're just going to be more in debt and just more stressed out that maybe that's the only thing you can do for your health and you can't do anything else.
When I speak from a very opinionated standpoint, I want to clarify that I'm speaking from me when I was younger, looking up to people on the internet for sort of help to help me sort my stuff out. And then to kind of very generalized say how it works from the personal development side, to be able to market to as many people as possible, often getting hyper specific is not the way to do it. So if you've got a big audience of followers, you want to be able to put out these general concepts and general ideas about personal development that hopefully people can attach to in some sort of way. And at least I think that's how it happens from the benevolent side of what people are trying to do. But what happens is, from the advice that comes from personal development people at that point, because the advice is so general and it's not tailored to a specific class of person really, then we don't know who they're actually targeting. So they could be targeting someone who's already got a pretty good job and they've already got, you know, a bit of savings in the bank account, Maybe their relationship's okay. Like they've actually got the basics of life
Like a
sorted.
support system around them.
Yeah, like having a job where you've got a bit of money and consistency coming in, and you've got a place to live is, I think that at a certain point, people giving this personal development advice are actually speaking to those type of people, and that's cool because everyone goes through mental struggles, even when you've got the basics of life down. So that can be helpful, like jumping in when you've already got those things down and you're still struggling, like maybe doing a bit more exercise or getting in a cold plunge and doing a sauna could actually be really awesome to give you a little of mental space and clarity from your life. But when you're like broke, like when you're like actually on the bones of your ass, like you're in between jobs, you maybe have 10 grand in debt, like your relationship has fallen apart, your whatever's going on, like you don't have the skills necessary to even get a job depending on the economy that you live in. Like when you're in that situation, you're really suffering and you're really struggling and you literally don't, and you haven't got anyone who's going to help you or help you get forward. When you're in that position, like a lot of the personal development advice means absolutely fuck all.
Yeah, well said.
And it's not like it means fuck all, but it's unless it's very specific advice, it can lead you down the wrong path. Because if you're a person and you're in that state that I just talked about, and someone that you're hoping is going to give you the answers tells you to do maybe like a cold plunge 3 times a week, that's what's going to sort you out. Even if they're not aiming it at you, you might not realize that. And you're taking it on, and suddenly instead of that alleviating you of some of the mental stress to give you some clarity to begin making moves, really what it does is it adds another thing on the list that you don't fucking have, and you're not going to be able to do it. And it adds to another reason why you're a failure and you're never going to be able to get there. And there's a whole mental process about whether you identify with that stuff and a way to organize your mind out. But generally speaking, for the average person, it's like, well, fuck, there's another thing I don't have. Like I can't do it. Like, how do I get off the ground? Like, what are the first principles things that you realistically can do to be able to just start turning your life around? And it's not like, oh, I'm going to go get credit card debt and start a business and become an entrepreneur right now and start doing a cold plunge. And that's how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's all good. If you can't do that shit, it's fine. Like, I really want to stress it to people out there. Like, you don't have to do that stuff. Like, if you're really, really struggling and you've got nothing, sometimes just getting a shit job so you've got a little bit of consistency in your life would be the best thing that could ever happen to you. Like, get rid of the stigma. Like, it's all good. Just get a shitty job with some shitty money that's a little bit consistent. So at least it's one less thing you have to worry about. So you can start like working your life out a little bit, you know? So that's kind of how I feel about the personal development space. So it's more about clarity and being specific about what's actually useful and what can be useful later on. You know, like the people
and what's accessible. Like focus on what is accessible to you instead of, you know, the pipe dream of got to get to that and then I can start doing the work. Like what's accessible around you to start doing the work straight away. I say the work. We all kind of have our own interpretation of what that is to ourselves. So I feel like everyone can understand what the work is that, you know, they feel they need, but like what's in reach. And that I think what you can do and what's in reach is going to be far more impactful than the thing you're trying to work towards in 6 months' time, which is, you know, being able to save up for a cold plunge in your house.
Back to the cold plunge.
Okay, so back to the cold plunge. So now I think what could be really beneficial is I'm going to ask you what benefits you get out of it or what it does for you or how you feel using it. And then by you describing your experience with it, people could then pinpoint if that's something that I'm not saying your experience is going to be everyone's experience but from all the people I speak to that do ice baths and cold plunges, I feel like it is a very similar experience. So by you talking about your experience, people can now pinpoint if that's something that could be useful for them in their life right now. You know,
Yeah.
because you might say what you get out of it and someone might be like, oh, fuck that. I don't need that. Like I've got that down packed. What I actually need to do is X, Y, and Z elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think instead of people telling people to do ice baths, we need to be talking more about our experiences and what we get out of them, because then people can understand if that's something that they need or they want to work towards.
That's a good point.
So tell me, Dill, who ice baths every morning, almost, what do you get out of them? How does it make you feel?
So I'll run through a few different modes of the way that I get what I do and what I don't get out of it. The first thing, to be honest with you, like I said, because this was like I heard stories of the Japanese gurus going into the mountains and reaching enlightenment through cold plunging, essentially. That was the number one reason why I wanted it. So I was so interested in that space that I wanted to see what it's about. So
it's like a ceremonial aspect of it.
Well, for me, it's an accomplishment. Like how I actually feel on the inside is I just wanted one since I was a kid. And so I got to finally buy one. And that makes me really happy, you know? So like in that respect, regardless of me, even before I've even gotten in it, being able to just get one has like ticked that sort of childhood dream.
Yeah,
for
cute.
me. I just thought that was cool. And I was like, well, I've heard Japanese people have become enlightened by doing it. And maybe some crazy guys in Russia or something like that. So I just want to jump in it and see what it feels like for my mind. So I've never been interested in it from a physical perspective at all. I was only ever interested in it in terms of spirituality and understanding my own consciousness and using it as a tool and as a method. So that's what I wanted it for. And then I got onto Wim Hof, right? And then he started talking about all the physical responses that you can have from getting in an ice bath and how you can take more control over your autonomic nervous system and potentially have control over the systems within our body that we consider like not automatic. Wait, automatic. So what I actually get out of it now, I personally haven't noticed much of a difference in terms of mood because I feel like I regulate my mood through other things in life, from meditation, introspection, having a fun life and having good relationships, to be honest. So in terms of mood, I haven't got much out of it besides like a quick like, whoa, that's crazy, which you can get from other things. So from the mood side, I've heard people report great things from it, but I haven't gotten much out of it because my mood's already pretty good most of the time. And if it's not, I don't use that as a way to fix it. In terms of the physical responses, I also haven't noticed much of a physical response besides like we have gotten much better at sitting in cold for a long period of time. Like your body, like my body to be able to deal with cold. Like I remember when we first jumped in it because we have this thing turned down to 0.1 degrees, as cold as I can get it before it starts freezing. So when we first jumped in, that like burnt the skin and was like just an instant rejection. Like it was like painful. And then what's your record? How long have you done in it? This is crazy actually. Like 14, it was like 14 or 16 minutes or something like that. Wild.
I feel like it was 16 minutes.
It was something crazy. Yeah, it was really.
I'm not enlightened. I think I'm just a psychopath.
Yeah, and potentially
like that's not. I don't even know if that's at the point of spiritual. I think that's at the point of fucking batshit crazy. But
yeah,
you be the judge.
Yeah, I mean, and that's crazy. So there's something to that. I mean, I haven't gotten sick much over the last couple of years at all, but I also don't get sick much either. So I'm not a good candidate in terms of the physical responses either. But for me, the spiritual benefit that I get out of it, it's a few minutes a day where I can put myself in a position to understand the way that my mind works a little bit more. And I want to actually,
beautifully said.
I want to outline this quite specifically to know what I mean, because I think there's a good way to do it, and then in my perspective, for me, a bad way to do it. So if you get in the cold plunge, and what normally happens is the the dialogue kicks in, like your mind kicks in, just going like, no, fuck this, like this is terrible. I got to get out. Should I get out? Oh, maybe I should get out.
Would you describe that as like your flight or fight response or your flight response?
I guess your body's freaking out because it's like I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Basically. So there's this instant. No, I know I've heard not everybody has a inner monologue, right? But in my case, I've got an inner monologue. The dialogue, the sub vocal dialogue starts going, and it starts saying like, all right, maybe you should get out today. Maybe 1 minute's enough. Maybe 3 minutes isn't enough because we normally set some sort of goal. And so this thing kicks in, and it's the same thing that kicks in when other bad shit happens in life. Like you have an argument with a partner and you're like, what are they talking about? Did I do something wrong? Like the dialogue kicks in. You do something wrong at work and it's like, oh, what is my boss going to say? What is this going to happen? Like the same dialogue that
should I just fucking quit and blow my life up?
Yeah, pretty much, right? So that same dialogue that kicks in times of struggle, and it's usually the same dialogue that's happening when we're riddled with anxiety. When we've got that feeling of anxiety and that dialogue kicks in, that happens immediately when you get in the cold plunge. And so in terms of bringing on, an easy way to say it is just suffering and anxiety in the mental world. You can do it immediately in the cold plunge. You can do it through exercise, like you just do anything difficult. But this is the quickest way to do it. Like it drops you into that space immediately.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy how immediate.
Yeah, like you have to work out pretty hard for a little bit before that starts kicking in.
Yeah, like I might get there on a run, but I've got to be at the 15K mark before I start
exactly
in that freak out mode. Yeah.
And so this is where I break it down into two sides, which is there's the discipline, personal development approach, and then there's the spiritual approach. The personal development or discipline approach is you engage your own mental process and you create an internal voice that's louder than the one that's happening. So the voice inside that's going, fuck, I want to get out. I don't want to do this. 1 minute is enough. 30 seconds is enough. Like I've done a good job. That little voice that's happening and freaking out, you bring a bigger voice in and you go, nah, no way, no way, no. And you basically override it. You override that voice inside, which there's something to be said for discipline and you having the capacity to just override whatever your body is trying to tell you. But I think that can be really, really harmful as well in the wrong way, because you're in that same way. Think about it like this. If you get so disciplined that you can completely override your intuition essentially, then that can be murky waters.
Yeah, because like you're only getting that monologue screaming at you because you're in fucking cold water. Like you can die if you sit in that water for too long.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's a rejection, right? It's a rejection. It's like, I can't hear this voice anymore, so I need to override it. I need to try my best to not think about it. I'm pulling away. I'm retracting from that voice. And at least in my take, from a spiritual perspective, you want to do the complete opposite of that, which is I don't want to put anything else into the space. I just want to detach. Be able to detach from it and view it objectively. So instead of overriding it, for 2 minutes a day, it allows me to sit there and go, be objective as possible and watch. Here we go. My voice is starting up, and watching that voice really kick off. And instead of me trying to stop it, tell it to shut the fuck up, tell it it's a pussy, tell it it's a bitch, and start creating this war inside of me. It's not about that. It's about trying to find some harmony, and it's like, all right, I hear you, man. I'm hearing it and I'm seeing it, but I'm not choosing to engage with it. And that's a very different thing. And so that's what I think that I get out of it in terms of a spiritual aspect. And I think it is the most important thing. It's a brief amount of time where your internal mind freaks out and you have the choice to either be objective with it and just leave it there. Don't touch it. Just like if there was ripples in a pool, you're not going to get rid of the ripples by getting in the pool and trying to push the ripples out the way. You just leave it. You just don't touch it. Don't touch it. And the practice of not touching it is one of the most fundamental things for me. and
While
how
still being aware it's there. So you're not
it's all about
blocking it out. It's watching.
It's all about awareness
Yeah.
and sometimes engaging like extreme discipline and creating war inside. And it's been like, I'm going to kill the inner bitch, like David Goggins style. I fucking love David Goggins. He's a legend, and I'm here for extreme discipline, but it's just not the only way. And for the things that I want to get out of it, I want to practice the art of being able to be objective to my inner world and not identify with the part of my personality that's freaking out if I don't want to, because otherwise, to extrapolate that out into life itself, when other bad things happen in my life for me, when I bring in my own hard voice and being like, nah, Dill, stop thinking like that, you're being a pussy, that just creates another layer. It's another layer of mind, another layer of conflict, and that doesn't actually stop the issue. The thing that really creates peace for me is the ability to just don't touch it. It's all good, man. Just leave it. And so it's the same thing that you do in meditation. It's the exact same thing if anyone's ever started doing meditation before. This is like...
Actually, that's a really good way to link it. It's exactly what happens when I meditate. That's what I'm practicing. That's what I'm applying. Yeah.
So when you sit down to meditate, the first thing they tell you is like, don't react. Like, don't comment on the internal comments. You know, it's like, oh, there's comments coming up. Don't go, oh, why are those comments coming up? And then you've created another layer of dialogue and then another layer on top of that. And it's like, I'm watching myself. And
don't judge that dialogue, as in there's no bad thoughts. There's no good thoughts. It's not judging. It just is what it is, and let it go. Yeah.
Don't judge it. And I know I just said it, but I really want to drive this point home because I think it's so important. If you're in a pool, you're standing in the middle of a pool, and you've been moving around heaps, the pool's waves, everything's happening. The disciplined way is to try and somehow fight against the waves to make them still. We all know that would never work. The only way to get rid of the waves in the pool that you're standing in is to stop.
Yeah.
Stop everything. Stop everything and wait till it's still. And then you've got a clear mind to work it the fuck out. And so using the ice bath as a tool for that, for me, is the most beneficial and important thing. But you don't need an ice bath to do that. You can practice that doing literally anything in life.
Yeah. But it's just one of the things that you can get if you want to do the ice bath route. Yeah.
Exactly.
Almost like becoming less reactive, which I think anyone and everyone can benefit from being less reactive. Reactive means there's control over you.
Yeah.
Which is never good.
You said it perfectly. Yeah, it's about not being reactive at all.
Yeah.
Reactive is, at least I'll define the word, reactive to me is where you have no control in taking action because of something that's happened to you.
Yeah,
that's reacting.
Yeah.
So there's no freedom there. But real freedom is when you have the ability to not react at all, and then you can begin choosing how you want to create and how you want to act. So that's what I get out of the cold plunge.
I love it. Perfectly said.
Yeah. So I'm sure it happens in many other ways. I don't want to take away from anyone else doing it. I really don't. I think the cold plunge is dope, but adding more context on what it can be useful for and when you can do it in your life, like, you know, don't stop feeding your kids to be able to get a cold plunge, you know, or whatever. Yeah, like there's more important things, and the things that I get out of the cold plunge, you can get out of doing anything with the right practice. So it's about, fundamentally for me, it's about awareness and about spiritual practice. And the cold plunge is just another thing in the world that can aid with that. But just like anything in the world, anything that we can do in reality, it can either wake you up or put you to sleep without the right spiritual practice in place. And I believe that's the same with the cold plunge.
Perfect. Should we leave it there?
Let's leave it.
If anyone has any more questions,
all right,
reach out to us.
Thanks, everybody. Love you lots. Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you.